We are living in an age of tremendous, insane amount of technology surrounding us. It is so invasive that every time, morning I was discussing with Pradeep about how when you visit a site, a bot can follow you everywhere you go without you knowing. To that extent, we are kind of surrounded by technology which we don't know. Rajni ended our talk with a philosophy story. Let me start with one, very quick one. Okay, in one class, the teacher asked the students, "There is a chair here. Prove that this chair doesn't exist." Okay, so all the students tried with various combinations and various abductive, inductive, deductive reasoning and all that. The professor is not impressed. Finally, one backbenchers, and who was looked totally uninterested about the debate, and professor has to pick up somebody, and he picked up saying, "What do you think?" He just coolly stands up and says, "Which chair?" And that guy wins the prize. Okay, so let's get started. This presentation is about, and you would see a lot of, this presentation is more about my views on the technology, intelligence, machine learning, behavior. This morning when I was typing some text to my friend in the WhatsApp, it was going all over. I just yelled at it, "Mr. Android keyboard, behave yourself." I find it very funny to say that we use the word behavior, which is reserved for humans, to software very easily. I still not understand. I'm not able to figure out what is the meaning of the word behavior as it applies to software. We will see if we can get to what the behavior would mean. The presentation is more about intelligence, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and what intelligence is about from a philosophical standpoint. Lastly, to something about testing. Okay, so relax, no heavy stuff here. The fight is between this robot and intelligent tester. Okay, and for several last 1 or 2 decades, the robot seems to be having a winning hand, because we are saying that the intelligence that is churned out by robot is far outstripping what a human could potentially think of. And in this presentation, we will try to see who is better, how are we going to do, at the end of the day, what it means to us as software testers. If you look at this question, what is a machine, probably to most of you people, Amir Khan's definition in 3 Idiots come into picture, right? Machine is something that reduces the human effort, right? We build on that notion. Initially, machines, right from probably the most famous machine that ever was built is a lever. I think famous Archimedes or somebody famously said, "Give me a space to stand outside and give me a larger lever, I'll lift the earth." That was the example of a first machine that we thought about. After that, a lot of mechanical machines came into picture, then the electronics machine, then TV, then washing machines and stuff like that. Each of these machines were supposed to do mechanical work, which was supposed to be not so value adding to human beings. For example, washing clothes, no intellectual stuff there, right? In the villages and other places where there's no machine, people think that it is an interesting thing to socially communicate when you're washing the clothes on the river banks. As opposed to that, in the modern world, washing doesn't seem to be bringing any kind of a human intellectual simulation. But machines have started in that range and have kind of got into our life in a big time. So I divide the whole idea of machine learning, information processing into 2 buckets. One side is about all computing. When computers first came into picture, the idea was, how do I store the information? The basic information, like maybe if it is a banking or any other record keeping kind of software, the focus was to store the information. So you just key in the information in any language, it is converted into binary, stored into zeros and one. We have seen computers having 64 MB of hard disk, right? Now, far ahead of that memory is available as a RAM in your phone, right? So first thing was to store. Now, in Moore's law, it was predicted that every 2 years, the number of ICs, number of chips, number of computing units in a small processor is going to double. We are outstripping that now, which means you are able to store far more imaginable information into a unit than what we used to do. Information processing, analysis as a speed. Now, next level of sophisticated in the software came in the form of taking this information, unstructured information from all the angles, trying to analyze this. What is the meaning of the term analyze? Break into small pieces, understand what the small piece is, from the small piece, make a sense of a big picture. That's analysis for you. Now, that started initially when you wanted to analyze your sales, analyze your spending, and where you're going to put your next retail store, and so on. That was the first seeds of computing leading to information or insight. That further went, people started saying, if I do this analysis of this bulk of data coming from sales, coming from market analysis, coming from promotions, what patterns I'm seeing, what relationships I'm seeing. Those relationships are going to lead me to my next strategy. So information, then intelligence. After that, we still have struggle with this encryption. We have a lot of encryption codes and the HTTPS that I can't decipher, pick the packet in the transmission, and I can decode this and all. So the challenge of how quickly I can break a particular code or particular encryption, which means that another level of machine information, then trying to process and analyze and break the code is the further progress there. How many of you heard quantum computers? Great. The idea of quantum computers, I will briefly, I don't know much, I just take it as a maybe last one for next 5 years as the step. The fundamental idea here is that in quantum mechanics, as we go from physics, after we understood there are electrons, protons, neutrons in the atom, then somebody said, okay, this atom is cut, the physics says the last is proton and neutron, nothing beyond that. But that is 1920. So after 80 years down the line, we said protons and neutrons are cut, and they are gluons, they are muons, they are mesons and all that, which appear and disappear in 10 to the minus 20th second in the Large Hadron Collider, where we found the God particle. We found out all this information, right? Basically, in quantum mechanics, the thing is, things exist only in a probabilistic sense. Electron is here, or there, cannot be ascertained until I make a measurement. That is a fundamental of quantum mechanics. Now, if the idea of that is used, means this famous Schrodinger's cat, dead and live at both at the same time, that was extended to prove that things at the subatomic level exist in multiple states superimposed at the same time. They collapse into one state when you make an observation. That is the simple term of quantum physics. The quantum mechanics, quantum computers, the idea which was proposed by great Richard Feynman was, and these days IBM is involved and few other companies are involved in building those computers, wherein information, instead of being stored as zeros and ones, is being stored in a quantum state in the atoms of certain elements in the processor, which means that now we are not no longer limited by 2 power something. We are probably x power something, so x power y. That is your idea of quantum computers. Okay, so information processing started from Moore's law and getting to store the information, process the information, break the code, get the intelligence. To quantum computers, they have done it all in last 10-15 years, which is the progress of robots and machines. At this side, when you are acting, so you have information now. You found out that in your fridge there is no milk, and you are heading home at 11 o'clock in the night, and you have to go and you are hungry, you want to make coffee and drink. You don't have no milk and no shops around, right? So the information that is given by some of the things that we said now, the IoTs, and which I'll probably come later, is going to tell you that there is an information. What I'm going to do with that information is there a machine that can act on that information? So some of the things like what you call as the fuzzy logic machines and intelligent machines, they are going to act on the information that is given. The idea of Turing machine, Alan Turing, there are a lot of movies there, and one of the very intelligent British mathematician and scientist, he envisaged what is called as measure of intelligence in a machine. What if there is a machine, there's a human being? His criteria was a machine would be considered as passing the Turing test or passing the Turing intelligence if someone on the other side, while conversing with this machine or conversing with a human, if he cannot figure out whether there is a machine conversing or a human conversing, if there is a machine on the other side, that machine is said to have Turing test passed, which means way back in early 50s or early 60s, we had a framework of what is called as a machine intelligence. Can machine act like a human being? Can machine act like a human with a human emotions and human like feeling? So the things like this putting together, and there is this famous idea of fuzzy logic, wherein you're not worried about whether the answer is 0 or 1 or 2. There are degrees of answers between 0 and 1. That is fuzzy logic for you. This example, we need to pick between precision and significance. You can be 100% precise, but utterly useless answer, like the one here. And you could be saying, just look out, a very precise answer, a very useful answer, but may not very precise. My question, is intelligence same as information? Or is information same as intelligence? We'll figure out. Some of the progress that robots have made, okay? The first mention of word robo, which was very later in some movies has done, but before that, something similar to what robots would do is mentioned in a 3rd BC ancient text, the first mention of the word robo. We have Deep Blue, an intelligent chess player defeating Kasparov or Karpov, right? So we had the elements of a program playing a chess, like a game like a chess, strategy like a chess, demonstrating human-like characteristics. IoT, I spoke about, things like that. You can have internet and intelligence in fridges and remotes every places, okay? Augmented reality, I know Google Glass has probably a failed project, dumped project, but it had a lot of ideas of how can I create reality. Many times when I go to nice places, I'm a nature freak. When I go into a forest kind of a thing in the morning, overnight drizzled, I just walked in the morning, and the feeling of smell, the birds chirping, that is the reality I want to create, and I would like to capture that reality and take it with me. Keep it with me in a form that I can recreate whenever I want. Is it possible? Probably we can create the photo. We can take the photo, which is for eyes. We can take a video to have some amount of the movement captured. What else you can do? Can you capture the smell? Can you capture the breeze, wind? You can't, right? So that is one area now robots have still not touched, but I hope that they may enter into that space very soon. Machines that can learn, we talked about Turing. Digital personal assistants, all of us know Siri, Cortana. I really wonder, why would we need Siri to do something which you can otherwise would do by keying in? But that is a fascinating technology. So far, I've not been able to figure out and say, okay, I have a meeting and call this person. Instead of saying that I have this meeting, call this person, I have to say this to a phone. Looks cool for some people, but looks a little boring for some people. I'm on the second category. Robots in operation theater. At one point of time, what was considered as a skill for doctor is the precision in which they are going to look at the problems. Not so much about the hand movement, but so much about the knowledge and the empathy that the surgeon brings on the life. But now that has been removed, and people are saying, okay, I will keep the most sophisticated machine that can do the operation. Would you go under operation for a robot like that? And I'm very skeptical about computerized eye testing. Why do you need computer to test the eye? Why can't a trained physician to do the testing? Thinking what has gone wrong into the eyes. Dr. Watson, go and look up. Those who are already aware is fine, but those who are not aware, look up for IBM Dr. Watson. Of course, Microsoft had a similar system called Dr. Watson for logging of the Windows bugs, tons and tons of they used to get from the field. Now IBM has gone ahead, and there are Watson APIs through which you can inbuilt that kind of intelligence into the software that you built. It is being said that because of Dr. Watson, several thousands of lawyers' jobs are going away in the US. It is legal advice. You go and hit somebody while you are traveling to office, you get into a law case, legal case, log in Dr. Watson and say, okay, I am stuck here, give me the legal advice. It will give you the legal advice considering all the Indian Penal Code, this, that, and all. Do this. Imagine, would you need a lawyer for that? Beautiful use of technology, but we will know as this picks up where it fails. Driverless cars, big debate these days. How does it work and what it does, what it can do? How driverless car will work in Marthali main road? Nobody knows. Again, some of these advances are possible because of the analytics, artificial intelligence. You heard of this called chatbots? These days, if you are on a very, most of the time, see, one thing I am very much frustrated these days with the virtual assistants. Most of the companies that we go in our 10 days back, 15 days back, there used to be one person. If your laptop is not working, there is a person to go. You need something your ID is not working, some person to go. Software is not installing, some person to go. These days, everything is kind of vanished, and we all have some numbers and tickets. We all speak to virtual things in the world everywhere. I wish anytime, if I had some person to talk to, I would explain that person my problem more better than I speaking to or raising a ticket or talking to somebody and waiting for the person to come back to me and solve my problem. Chatbots have taken this to an absurd level, which means that any problem, you start talking to the bot, which will respond like Cortana or Siri, and at the end of it, it would have recollected information and it will solve the problem. The chatbots are becoming very famous in those situations where we need a customer support. Be aware. The warning, they are searching for consciousness. Okay, the hard problem of consciousness. Now let us look at, enough of technology, okay? Cool down. We'll talk about some of the stuff of philosophy and mind and all that. Few of these things, it started with that gentleman. Who is that guy? René Descartes. He identified the existence with thoughts. What he said, the cogito ergo sum, I don't know whether I spelled it correctly, pronounced it correctly. I think, therefore I am. He identified the existence with the thought. If you are able to think, means you exist. The foundation of all the modern philosophy in the Europe. Osho. He may be controversial, but some of the things that he said are amazing about human mind. You are not the mind. You are separate from the thoughts. You are different from the thoughts. Existence, or human existence, the consciousness is different from the thought. Intelligence is different from the thoughts. Eckhart Tolle, you should read, there are a lot of books about mindfulness. Most of the time we do stuff without knowing what we do. You drive from office to home, home to office without realizing that you have made 14, 15 kilometer journey, which I do that more often. Mindfulness. Ability to do things, what you're doing will lead. It is very useful for software testers or human beings in general that it will make you make less errors if you're mindful. Simple thing. When you approach a door, you have to either push or pull. right? Most of us do what? We do one default approach, either push or pull. That is an example of mindlessness. If you are mindful, before you approach, which I want to take it as an exercise full day, that I will look at what is there and then do action. Maybe 3 or 4 out of 10 times I do this. The rest of the time I just go and do the default action. When you go out of the lift, you tend to turn left or right by default. Again, mindlessness, right? This guy said that there are 2-3 books which are freely downloadable. One is Power of Now, by this guy who says there's a lot of mental rumbling happening in the mind all the time. Thoughts are not you. The biggest obstacle to experience the reality is the rumbleness of the mind. Your association of yourself with the thought and the mind is a blocker for you to experience the reality, enlightenment. This gentleman is V.S. Ramchandran, a neuroscientist, put what is brain beautifully in this sentence. A 3-pound mass of jelly, which you can hold in your palm, is capable of contemplating the vastness of the interstellar space, contemplating that in a beautiful vicious circle relationship. It is capable of doing that. Brain. Now I don't want to get to the argument, brain and mind. Here is a mind? No. It's a heart, it's a pump. Again, we are talking about testing models, right? Heart is a pump, one model. Heart is seat of consciousness, another model, right? So if you start looking into all of this put together, the human intelligence and the quantum computer at one end, Turing machine at one end, and the human intelligence and the consciousness at the other end, we have a fair fight here going on, okay? Now, I wish all the neuroscientists and psychologists would be happy to put something like this in the end of the day. Formula. Key in the numbers. Mind, of course, there is a IQ test, there is an IQ test score, but it is proved with a lot of examples that it is much more than that. Quick mind map of what intelligence is. What are the dimensions of the intelligence? I would not read about. Things that are very difficult for machine to pick up is this abstract thinking. Can machine contemplate on purpose of life? Happiness, life after death. These are the aspects of the human mind, human brain, which are very difficult. Brain-body coordination. I use the word brain because not mind. So it's brain-body coordination. In the sports, in dancers, in surgeons, in the craftsmen, how the coordination comes into picture. Social awareness, empathy, linguistic, expression, reasoning is pretty much machine can take over. Pretty much. Improvisation, music. If Ustad Zakir Hussain were to play tabla, there is something called solo tabla, which is like a collection of 2-3 things together, chained together. I'm sure if he does 3 programs in a day on the same setup, all 3 will be way different because there's an element of improvisation. I have been learning tabla myself, so I can understand some of the things that goes in the mind. All these famous classical singers, when they sing, they don't know what they're going to sing until they sit and start. Every minute they improvise, change. That is the realm of the music and the human intelligence. Of course, there was a fictional movie where there was a robot playing the violin, which means robots have entered into that area as well. Creativity, imagination, you can do a lot of imagination. You're being here, most of you are thinking about so many things in the office, house and all that. Imagination is at work. You're working, a lot of imagination happening now. Think about a machine doing this imagination for you. Okay? So these are the aspects of the dimensions of the intelligence. We would come back to this because some of the skills of testing are hidden here. Now come to the point. What is an intelligent software? Software which integrates all of this. Some of it requires the computing part, which is storing the information. Second part is acting on it, which is taking the information as an intelligence and make an intelligence choice. Okay? After all, finally we have come to test it. Okay? Not yet before, but again, if you ask what is a program, software program, at the end of the day, when it is compiled into a file, sequence of zeros and ones, right? So you might say a set of instructions for a computer is a software program, which means there is no human involvement there. At the end of the day, processor is going to take the zeros and ones. As per the rules, it is going to execute and produce the output, right? But when you ask what program is for, who is going to use it, what kind of setup the program is going to be used for, then it opens up a huge opportunity of the world around you to say what we are doing, how this program is going to behave. I'm using the word behave quickly. So it is the human element and the context in which the program is put in decides how the program is going to be tested. Okay? Now, if you start expanding on this, so sometimes when you make a difference between B2B and B2C, similar on the lines, if I am thinking about an API, the definition which I normally use is API is a program meant for another program. Right? Now, when you are testing API, I need to think like my end user. My end user is API. End user is another program. I don't have to worry about emotions there. There's a contract. As opposed to, I'm using a browser, I'm developing a web application that will help you to register and do some transactions. You are having a software meant for human. Now, we are in an ecosystem where it is mixed up with, there is a software meant for software, serving software meant for humans. And there is a hardware on the top of it, network on the top of it, so many other variations, and that makes the software testing as a profession very complex. If you include, this is what the expanded definition of a program came from Dr. Kem Kenner. You should read this software testing as social science, Google it on his site, you get this article. It's a communication system. How beautifully the instruction changed to communication system. Communication between what? Several humans and computers that are distributed over space and time. Contains, by the way, it contains the instructions for the computer. If you use this definition of software for your purpose, you would be very careful in saying, testing can be automated. You'll be careful in saying that. Finally, the point of software program is to provide value to stakeholders. The term value is very tricky. Because most of the time people say, are we adding value to this project? Or most of the time, sales persons will face this problem from a customer. You have been engaged with us for 2 years. Your team hasn't added, I need value adds. Or a company advertising, these are the value added services. My question is, why should there should be a service without value in the first place? Why are you going to add the value as something which is like tadka? Right? Value should be there in the first place. So the idea of value is personal. The notion of stakeholders is a kind of a fictitious entity. The group of people. Now, if at all you're dealing with so much of ambiguous stuff, so much of stuff that can be interpreted, that makes our profession software testing very, very interesting. Probably, if you have this piece of this thing, just quickly to look at the history of software testing, you must be interesting to see the first software, Jerry Weinberg software testing team, 1958. Means we are about 60 years old. Roughly, our profession is 60 years old. The first thing. Few of the things, the first software testing book here, Art of Software Testing, Glenford Myers, 1979. Look at this, some of these milestones. Interesting ones, weekend testing. You mentioned about Ajay. This was born out of India, Bangalore. Our own people started this thing called weekend testing, and now it's kind of slowed down, but a beautiful idea of a group of people coming together on the Skype. Started in India, went to Australia, US, Europe. The ideas of collaborating on the weekend has become a phenomenon itself. So just kind of thing, testing is dead 2011, not my idea. It was started from Google, Alberto, and few people said testing is dead. That was one of the key milestones in the history of the software testing. Now the question that I'm going to ask is, how did technology and business needs shaped and characterize the testing? What it did do? How did we think about testing in 90s, 70s, 80s, and then now? Guess one. Testing is a process of executing an application with an intent of finding bugs, right? Famous interview question. I don't know these days in the interview question you are asked what is testing, but still it will help to you to remember that definition. Testing validates and verifies that the application meets its requirements. Most of the people think that, again, this is a very solidified wisdom, that I can validate the requirement. Requirements are written in English, a human language. Jerry Weinberg in the book Better Quality Before Requirement says, take this nursery rhyme, Mary had a little lamb. Read this several times by focusing on one word at a time. Mary had a little lamb, not Julie. Mary had, doesn't have now. Little lamb, little, big, fat, whatever. Lamb, some other animal. In this way, in that book, in that certain page, this particular sentence has about 18 to 19 different interpretations. How many times we deal with 50 to 60, 70 pages of requirement documents with the images and figures and tables and the deep technical language, and we claim that I can validate this document. Most of the time, the mistake that the testers do is that treating English language as machine language interpretable as 0 as 1. If A equal to B, C equal to 10, then D equal to 5. On the day when we are able to get our requirements to this precise machine form, probably requirement validation would be possible, but now, not now. Lot of things. Testing ensures quality, delights customers, bring revenue to the company. True, but if you are a tester, you can poke holes on this big time. Testing is or has become commodity service. Apologies to services industry people there. Many people stand up with proudly say that testing is commoditized. I feel it's a shame. It's not. A particular version of it has commoditized. By saying it is commoditized, we are actually taking out the excitement and the essence out of it. By making it tasteless, dead, brain-dead activity commoditized, take it. But there is a lot of excitement which is removed for the purpose of making it scalable. Testing is buried in the buzzwords of accelerating delivery, cost of quality, improve quality, so much of buzzwords. Now, what I call this as is a poor characterization of testing. Because of this poor characterization of testing, we have had challenges in identifying our profession. If there is a story that one person in the US says, what your wife is doing? No, nothing, she is just in the housewife. Now, why don't you get her into a testing job in the pharma company? All you need to do is just read English, read the text and do the action, pass, fail, log the bug, go home. This is an anecdotal reference or an example of idea of all this poor characterization that has gone through because of the technology in the business. Now, what happens when the humans and robots meet together? Let's have this interaction. Now, basic ones we are already using: test data generators, visualization, scenarios, and virtualization cloud already into picture. Defect predictions. There are software which will say, and this is probably my very interesting thing which I'm going to work on for next 1 or 2 years or so. Take all the information about your bug tracking system and put into analytics. You may get some interesting patterns about it. And then the very idea that the definition of bug is a little fuzzy, but we'll be able to get a lot of information about where the mistakes can come from. Can machine learning teach? There is a program, you create a program that will test, And that testing team will feed this information, can it make better? Now you have this thing, automatically generate test cases, automatically provision environment to test bed, automatically run all the tests, automatically report the bugs. Boss, where is the space for humans? If you think critically, you'll be in a position to say where each of one of them can fail. What challenge you need to be ready for? I'm back to intelligent tester. What challenge you should be ready for? The tussle between these two continue. Testing subjects and objects are becoming complex, fuzzy, and human-like. If I need to test a car or a driver or a program that is human-like, I need to be a step ahead of it. We need to learn the skills that are important to beat a human-like machine. The famous saying, no, you can wake up somebody who is sleeping, but you can't wake up somebody who is pretending to be sleeping. The software which is having the intelligence is like software pretending to be human. If you want to test that, that's going to be the challenge I'm talking about. Testing web applications, doing automation, doing performance testing, function testing, load testing is all run out of the mill. It's BAU. If some of you need to be energized, if I were to plant one seed in your mind, which is, if you were to test the software of tomorrow, if you were to need to test the software of next generation, what skills you need to be. Some of the hints were given in that mind map. Challenge the poor characterization. Practice to develop skills that matter, skills and that fight the character, commoditization. Practice testing. Ours is the only profession, there is no practice. A sportsman can practice cricket. A musician will practice playing the things. A developer will code. As a tester, how do you practice? Reading books, writing code, not testing. How do you practice? Just take this question in your mind today. If you want to be a great tester, ask yourself, how do I practice my testing every day? How do I sharpen my saw? One secret, okay? This entire presentation that I showed you is generative. Do you agree? Believe? Don't believe, right? There is one thing like this. Look for this, Cygen, an automatic CS paper generator. Okay? What it does is an MIT research project. You just put the names. Sorry, Pradeep, I had to pick his name. I wanted a co-writer. Okay? And click generate. Boom, you have a scientific paper. I know QA is a very tough paper. I can't send this paper to you and get selected, right? Now,
we have better humans to scan through robotic paper generators.
So the point here is that creating the presentation like this through a tool may be a reality soon. How? If a bot were to chase me from last 20 years I have been in this industry, looking at all my pictures, all my tweets and blogs and all that, my interests and some of the hints that I leave everywhere, my footprint in the Twitter and Facebook and everywhere. And if I tell the software that I am going to QAI, I'm going to talk about fight between intelligent tester and a dumb robot or vice versa, show me a PPT that you can come up with. Probably the first cut will not be as good as this, but eventually it will get there, okay? This is a prototype, not the head, a prototype of a nano solution or nanochemical, which when sprayed on the back of the head, creates a nano 3D printer, which creates this USB port through which you can do one of the famous and the most talked about word in our industry. What? Any guesses? Yes, KT. A day is not far, I mean, it's already happening. We do KT as easily as we do fund transfer. Okay? This is not far away. This might happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Question, but I do have so many questions and views in my mind that it won't be possible to discuss here.
So the only
So
way
I think
possible
I'll
is
have
that
to get
I
back
tie
to
down
you again.
Shrini to the QAI help desk and you come and
Sure.
badger. I
was a
literally
very bold
handcuff him to
presentation.
the...
And I would like to get back to him and I
Okay,
wish
sure.
to discuss with him.
No, please continue. You have any observations, remarks, poses to Shrini?
I do have a lot of observations. He made very bold statements where he says that we don't need the bots for future. But how do you wish to get a solution for that? We have lack of resources. We need the bots. We need the bots everywhere.
Yes.
That is the reason we are moving towards the bots.
Okay. If bots are not good, no. Certainly, that was not my point. I am trying to say that bots which do useful stuff, bots that do intelligent stuff, bots that learn are coming in our way as software testers. They are there, they are real. I just brought them into the center stage. Look, here are the stuff that you're going to test in the future. Now, if you are a tester testing a bot, which demonstrates chitty, robo-like characteristics, emotions. Very soon you got to have robots with emotions. If you are a tester in the team that is testing the software that is put in the robo, what skills do you need? That was my point. You have to go back to, so most of the time in the conferences, I asked Pradeep to say, let's have a conference that talks only about skills. And we will consciously not allow anything which is tool-based. PK, excuse me for that. So, if you were to talk about anything of that sort with no tools, only skill, which is focused on the human thing, how do I question, how do I imagine, how do I communicate, how do I prioritize, all of these are the key skills of testers. How will the testing community go forward? And I would like to see the conferences bring in more skill element. One person should demonstrate questioning, impromptu, spontaneous questioning skill that is important for a tester. So, on the day when in the conferences we talk about skills, we have gone one step ahead of the robots. That's the answer.
Thank you, Shrini. Thank you indeed. Another round of applause. Thank you indeed. His topics have been very